Hi everyone, welcome back to Gulf Business Academy. Mark Dickinson with you. Today I'm excited to introduce you to Rami Shaar. Rami is passionate about laundry and he runs a company called Watchmen. It's based in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. It's very big, it's very professional, and we're excited to learn about the future of laundry from Rami. Rami, welcome, great to have you.
Thank you for virtually having me on this Zoom call. Excited to be here.
Great. So Rami, tell us a little bit about your story and tell us a little bit about the laundry and Watchmen.
So it goes back to 2014. I used to work in investment banking and private equity. And in my later years, I was in private equity before jumping into this whole startup world. And as a banker, I used to have a lot of suits. I used to work very long hours. And getting a reliable service that can service me in, after hours, coming back home after 10 p.m. Was very difficult. So as you can imagine, I would have a load of laundry that would just pile up. And I realized, there must be something that can improve here in terms of the service. The guys don't come after 10 p.m. That's one issue. The other issue is I have to be there to meet the driver. I have to pay in cash, right? So there was a lot of issues that I was facing being a consumer myself. So I approached a friend that just joined Uber in 2014, late 2014. And I shared with her the idea and said, how about you leave Uber and join me and let's do this Uber for laundry type of thing. And she's like, you know what? I think it will be better for you to actually come on board to Uber, join us for a bit, and see how that goes. So Uber was quite exciting. It was still in its early phase. I think it was around 45 cities that they were still in. And I joined them to be one of the operations and logistics managers in the region. And learned quite a bit how to work with tech and data to be able to drive decision-making week on week with your business. And I realized that I can go back to my original idea after a year being at Uber and going on with the full challenge of being an entrepreneur and launching this new vertical for an on-demand laundry business here in the UAE. So that's really how things started. I approached Jad Halawi. He's one of our co-founders. He's the second co-founder, I'm the first. And basically told him, how about you invest in this business? He's one of my best friends that I know from high school. And he was working in Canada, in Calgary at the time. And I said, how about you leave Schlumberger and move away from those oil fields that you're working in and move here to the UAE. So it changed the conversation just very quickly, changed from being an investor to being a partner. And Jad literally booked his flight 2 weeks later with a return ticket. He didn't know if this is going to last. He left his car in the Calgary Schlumberger office, and his car is still parked outside. They call him every quarter, telling him, hey, you need to remove this car that's been parked outside, which he never really got the chance to, go sort out. So it's been quite busy since we launched in 2015 until today.
That's an amazing story. So you were a banker and you jumped into entrepreneurism and went all in.
Pretty much, yeah. So it's the first venture that I get myself involved. People, parents ask, what if this thing fails? And my answer to that was, there is no option to fail, right? It's kind of like you're all in. You get into a survival mode. It's very easy for you to think of an idea and shoot it down while you're in a comfort zone or in a job. But when you're in the middle of it, shooting it down is like, you've wasted all that effort that you've done. So you enter the survival mode and you overcome any obstacle that comes. And as you know, like today we're going through the craziest obstacles, which I'm excited to talk about.
So you had this brilliant idea. You've been doing it for 5 years. What's been the highlight, the golden moment of those 5 years?
So there's a lot of interesting moments, a lot of exciting times, launching into the market, coming up with cool new features and hacks, let's say, for the business. They're not really hacks. They're extensive product, research, and you launch something new to the market, and seeing that work, and how does that change, your financials and the sustainability of your business. So we've seen many of these things, but I think the greatest moment that we've been going through over the last 5 years is actually with the recent developments with the COVID-19 situation, and how up until the second week of March, things were looking really good for us. We were at our all-time highs. We didn't know if this thing was going to impact us. And then literally overnight with the lockdowns and people working at home, it was literally a 180-degree turn on the business, which within hours we had to reconvene as management and take drastic measures. And those measures, are the situation that we're in is way beyond any CFO or any leader. These are unprecedented circumstances. We're entering, everyone's calling it a force majeure. But the way to really act during this time is not by pulling out the guns and start pointing them at, the contracts and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of getting the buy-in first of your employees and the support. And then obviously, the rest of your supply chain, be it suppliers. And we've done quite well. I was quite surprised with the reaction of our employees when we did come to them and say, hey, listen, these are going to be really rough roads. There's a high level of unpredictability. We are going to go into salary cuts immediately with potentials of unpaid leave. And, I was expecting some sort of, difficulty with that conversation, but I was really, really impressed with how everyone understood the situation and trusted the management and what needs to be done to overcome these circumstances. So I think what we're going through right now is the greatest impact that we've seen on the business, and it's really going to change the business going forward.
Amazing. So Rami, this crisis is not going to last forever, we believe, and we're going to come out the other side. What is at the other side of this period of shutdown? What comes afterwards?
So this really depends on sector by sector and how the economy would open up. So you might not necessarily see all industries return back to normal as fast. What we've seen is the biggest impact is the lockdown itself, which is a temporary situation, right? The lockdown might ease up before a vaccine immunity. We hope so. Before an immunity really comes in. So with that opening and people going back to work and going back to the gyms, we will see as laundry a higher volume of orders naturally, just because you're changing into multiple clothings per day, right? Your gym clothes, your pajamas, your suits and whatnot. So we expect post-lockdown, we are going to see some sort of V-shape return on the business. And we believe also that, the growth post-lockdown, we're not sure if it's post-lockdown or post-COVID-19 after immunity, but sometime then we expect the growth to be even higher than it was before.
And how do you expect that to affect the structure of your workplace and number of people employed? Is that going to change? Is it going to increase? Are you going to have different structure of management? How is that going to impact you?
So the way we work as a business here in the UAE, it's a very interesting economy where the labor market is pretty much a full-time market, right? You don't really have students and part-times that can come in and support a business, which you see in, let's say, North America, for instance. You can work part-time on hourly wages. The way we've managed our seasonality and seasonality of demand basically is through outsourcing certain low-level, let's say, labor work, unskilled. We call it unskilled labor work within our supply chain to companies that provide us with manpower, right? And then during times of lower demand seasons, we let go of those part-time. We call them part-time outsourced labor, and we fill in the demand with our full-time staff. So many businesses do similar tactic when to be able to manage seasonality. Whereas for us today, obviously we don't have any of the outsource. We have more full-time employees than we need for the demand, given that we've seen a significant drop in business. And what we are doing as management and as tech as well is we're building processes and tools to be able to monitor the efficiency of our operations hourly by the employee, so that once we go back to full-scale volumes, we're able to be a much leaner business with much more predictability, with much more control on how we staff our resources. And I think we'd achieve, obviously that will translate into better financials and better gross margins on the business. So we're just taking this time to really build tools so that when things go crazy again and the scale needs to kick in, we scale better than we used to do before. So I don't necessarily say we're going to hire more or less. I think the business is growing. We will continue hiring, but we will hire smart and more efficiently for the operations.
And have you lost people throughout this process of COVID, or you have the same people around, but they're just waiting to come back?
So the attitude that we've done was we didn't want to fire anyone in the business. There were a few small positions that needed to be let go. But in general, we've kept, I would say 99% of the jobs. The attitude was it's better off keeping our employees. This is talent that took us a very long time to interview, hire, train, onboard, all that kind of stuff. And it would be a waste if, in a couple of weeks, we hope, or a couple of months, the lockdown situation reverses. So basically, our priorities, when you do come and say there's going to be unpaids and there's going to be salary cuts, your priority as management changes, where it becomes really thinking of your employees. Your employees are the most important thing to the business. To me personally, we have 170 employees, and really the number one priority is you need to really make sure you have a place to sleep, right? And food to eat. And if you don't have that, please let me know. And we have drastic measures that we can put in place to secure that for our employees. So I never really imagined being in that kind of situation, but it is a situation that we're in. And the sense of solidarity that we're having as a team is just, I never expected it to be like this. And
how busy are you, Rami?
How busy am I? Busy goes into my sleep sometimes, right? It's not just busy where I'm actually working, but it's the thinking, it's the worry that really hits you. So I'm quite consumed.
How will this COVID affect the way you manage costs in your business from now on?
So obviously, like I said, using tools and tech, and we're fortunate to have about 17 engineers that are able to really build anything that we need for the business. And as management, we look at ourselves as internal consultants for the business. We're super hands-on. We dip into each other's departments when we need to help each other, and we translate that into product needs so that we can solve our challenges through technology. Think of it as an internal SAP, but instead of going to SAP, we have our own SAP, and we're solving our problems ourselves. So that's part of the reason why it's super exciting, is that we are able to translate challenges into products that we can solve. So that's very important, to identify issues, solve them, and we understand that many of these issues will have a financial impact, because achieving operational efficiency, autonomy, monitoring, you're hiring less people, less hierarchy, where the tech does the work for you. And I think that's very important for us.
So what's the game-changing thought or the game-changing decision that's coming out of this for you? What is revolutionizing the way you do business?
So we've actually had this thought pre-crisis, and we were talking as a strategy, within our strategy meetings of how do we want to position the company in front of its customers going forward. And I think the main value that we really want to focus on, and it gets really interesting with how we want to do this even with tech, is transparency. Having the highest level of transparency within a business, will just build the ultimate level of trust with your consumers, will differentiate you from your competitors. And during these difficult times, decisions can have an impact on your business overnight, right? And you need to be able to react with your customers and communicate with your customers and engage with your customers. So being transparent, if you're always transparent and you go through these challenges, consumers will trust that you're doing what's best for them, right? And it will make it easier for you to manage more challenging situations. But as a business, go ahead.
Yeah, you're talking about customers, and that's my favorite subject. So obviously, without customers, we don't have business. What expectations are going to change for customers because of COVID? What's their new expectation?
So before looking at the expectation, I think it's kind of like going through and understanding what we are experiencing now, right? There's a lot of luxuries that we're missing out on as consumers. There's a lot of things that we were taking for granted. So I think there will be a mind shift with consumerism here, specifically in the UAE. One thing that I see will change is how we treat the people that serve us, right? Be it someone in a restaurant that serves us, right? We live in a culture where we don't tip, right? Tip is kind of an extra. And I think in today's environment, we're seeing that many people are being impacted, and we understand how tips go a very long way. Even your grocery man, right? The guy who's coming to deliver to you, you might think, okay, their business is booming and he's really busy and he's making his tips. And maybe I don't need to tip him. But to be honest with you, you need to think of not just him, but think of his brother or his sister who've lost a job, and his wider family now becoming even more dependent on that individual, right? It's even more important to tip than it was before. So I think the game changer will be in our empathy towards people who serve us and how we're going to treat them. And this is something that we need to carry forward. And I think that if it was one thing, start tipping. I think that's extremely important and does make a big impact.
So you see a rise in social values coming up?
Absolutely. Whether it's a consumer to business or employees and culture within the business, sense of solidarity is.
And what values do you see? Sorry, what values do you see evaporating? What values do you see as not important anymore?
Usually, values should be a good thing, right? So I don't necessarily see a value that actually evaporates, but I think there are situations where you see businesses or competitors deceiving customers or misrepresenting or lacking transparency. So I really think that the more we understand and the more industries become transparent, the more it puts pressure on competitors because that transparency from your competitor is potentially exposing you, right? So I think disparities between pricing and the value that you're giving to customers will come down. We need to become more transparent, and ultimately that's how you build stronger industries because customers trust you as opposed to, let's say, your competitor, and your competitor sees that and will start reacting, and eventually that level of competitiveness will build better industries in the long run.
Brilliant. So Rami, I want to ask you, when this whole thing wraps up and, maybe we have a vaccine, or maybe there's a cure, or maybe, lockdown is lifted, what is going to be the general response of people? What do you think? Just for the fun of the idea, what do you think is going to happen? How do you think people are going to respond and behave?
I think there's going to be a massive reflection once, that is achieved, where it's like overnight, the same way this came in overnight, it potentially could be overnight, a nightmare that ends. And that kind of reflection, I see myself having that reflection on my next vacation, when I can afford to have the next vacation, where I'm going to reflect, what happened between the last vacation that I took and this vacation, right? And it's just going to be like, it's going to be overwhelming for me to really see what's happened. So I think it's more that kind of like internal feeling that everyone's going to look back at this nightmare and it's kind of a sense of euphoria that I can't believe this is over. This is where I'm. This is the kind of hope I have for myself. Looking forward today.
Brilliant. Now, I want to ask you very quickly, top of your mind, 5 things that are leadership to you. What are the top 5 leadership things for you that people should know right here, right now?
Oh, okay, that's putting me on the spot, but
yeah, of course.
so transparency. So we're big believers of transparency. So transparency, not just with your customers, but with your employees. So that's one. 2, paying people right. So I think bonuses are very important. There's a lot of industries where bonuses are not there, especially in an industry where tips are not there. And we're not, consumers are not filling in the shoes of that extra sense of reward for a good performance. So I think paying bonuses, I think that's extremely important to drive business as a leader. Other thing is getting your hands dirty, right? Getting to the level of the operator, I think is quite important. When your employee or the operator sees that you are, putting those gloves on and doing exactly what they do, so you can learn, the challenges that they're going through, and then you're going to come back and solve it for them. You build a stronger sense of trust towards, your employees, and they have more trust in the process that you're building. Another thing very important is listening. Listening to your employees, right? Accepting that feedback. However stupid an idea may seem, it can always spark a better idea. So that's that. And then I think, the 5th one.
I'm pushing you.
5th one. Those 4 came quick.
I think your passion is the other one, because you've got this massive passion for what you do. So.
Yeah, so I think that's important. Passion and trying to see how can you spill that passion on others, right? It's great to see employees acting like founders and taking ownership within the business. It's very rewarding, and I think that comes with the other things that I've said, right? You can't really have a sense of ownership if you don't believe in the management, and you don't trust, and I think and you're not rewarded properly, right?
Brilliant. Well, Rami, I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate all your time. I know you're super busy, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for your transparency. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, and I really enjoyed the session.
Great. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Gulf Business Academy. This was Mark Dickinson. Keep staying on this channel. We're going to have some more interviews coming up. It gets more exciting. Thank you so much.